Hi there, my name is Hollie Grant and I am an advanced pre- and postnatal fitness specialist and founder of The Bump Plan. Now in this video, we're going to be talking about the pelvic floor. Now, one of the things I hear most from my clients who've had a cesarean is, I don't need to worry about the pelvic floor because I had a cesarean birth. Now, sadly, that is not the case. We have just spent the best part of potentially 9 to 10 months carrying a very, very heavy uterus on our pelvic floor. So no matter how we gave birth, we've all gone through pregnancy, and pregnancy puts a huge demand on the pelvic floor. So showing your pelvic floor some love postnatally is really, really important, even though we gave birth via cesarean. So the first thing we need to be thinking about is what the pelvic floor looks like and what it does. So the pelvic floor, if we first think about the pelvis is almost like a bowl of bone that connects the upper half of the body and the lower half. So the spine sits into it and the legs come out of it. So if you think of during pregnancy, that's the area that probably has the biggest changes happening and the biggest demand on it. At the base of that pelvis, we can almost imagine it like a bowl that hasn't got a base to it. It hasn't got a bony base to that pelvis. So what's there instead is the pelvic floor. Now the pelvic floor consists of layers of muscle that overlap and intertwine, that are almost like a hammock that stretch from the pubic bone at the front. They stretch back to the coccyx at the back and then spread out to your sit bones. So it's quite vast. And those muscles wrap around 3 holes: the anus, the vagina and the urethra, which is why the pelvic floor is responsible for the passage of urine and stopping us from weeing, the passage of gas and feces or stopping that from happening, and also contraction of the vagina. So those pelvic floor muscles wrap around those 3 holes, so they're in charge of those 3 holes, and they also help support the weight of our pelvic organs, so bowel, bladder, etc. So as the uterus got bigger and heavier, the pelvic floor had a much bigger job, which can lead to fatigue, and it tends to highlight if there's an issue with the pelvic floor. How many of you found during pregnancy that sneezing and coughing caused a bit of leaking? Well, that's usually a sign that the pelvic floor is not quite coping, and that is why it struggles to control that passage of urine. So, postnatally, even in the first few weeks of having a cesarean, we can start pelvic floor exercises, and they are so important, but we do need to do them well. What we need to aim for are pelvic floor holds and pelvic floor pulses, because the pelvic floor is made up of 2 different types of muscle: fast twitch and slow twitch. Now, when we do pelvic floor holds, we are stimulating our slow twitch muscles, and they are your endurance muscles. They're doing a big job most of the day, and that's why they respond best to longer holds. So when we're doing a pelvic floor hold, we're going to be aiming to hold our pelvic floor, and it's a squeeze of the holes and a lifting of the pelvic floor. I'll touch on this in a moment, for anywhere up to 8 to 10 seconds, and that is going to feel like a very long time at first, so build up to it. Pulses, they stimulate our fast twitch muscles. These are like your backup army that come in when you cough and you sneeze and you lift something heavy. So they respond to powerful short pulses, and you'd be aiming for around 10 of those. Whether you're doing a pulse or a lift or a hold, what we really want to be thinking about is closing the 3 holes, so holding in wind, holding in wee, and gripping with the vagina. So there's your closure of your holes, and a lifting of the pelvic organs. So if we're doing a hold, we would think about closing the holes, lifting, and then trying to hold that anywhere up to 8 to 10 seconds. And with the pulses, we'd be thinking of a squeeze and a lift, but fast, on, off, on, off, on, off. Now, it's really important, if you are doing pelvic floor exercises, also called Kegels, that you are aware, if you have a tight pelvic floor, that they might not be best for you. So if you've ever been diagnosed as having a tight pelvic floor, or if you look online and it sounds like you have some of the symptoms, pelvic floor exercises might not always be ideal for you. So I do want to caveat that. But if you have a weak pelvic floor and you feel that you need some strength in that pelvic floor, do your holds, do your pulses. Ideally, if you're trying to strengthen that pelvic floor, you would aim for 10 holds and 10 pulses, that's one workout, 2 to 3 times a day. But it's a lot, and we have children. So I hope that was helpful. Again, remember to do holds and pulses so you're targeting all of the pelvic floor. Make sure it's a squeeze and a lift. And I would also try and breathe if you can. And we can do all of this whilst holding our babies, feeding our babies, but do try and be somewhere where you can concentrate so you can give it your full attention. So I hope that helps, and I'll see you again for another video very soon. Bye.